Back in summer and fall 2013 we lowered one part of our garden to make it more even, but because of doing that the old stairs of our patio weren't high enough anymore. And a new one out of steel costs about 800 euros, that's a little bit too much. So I suggested to build one out of wood that would be even bigger and nicer than the new steel one. We started by removing the old foundation, which was quite a pain in the ass to do, because it was way too big and attached to the house foundation. Luckily, I didn't have to do that. Finally, we got them out and could start on making the new foundation. To start with, we digged a L-shaped hole and put some wood on the sides. This doesn't have to look pretty. Then we mixed a lot of concrete, all by hand in buckets. This was quite a repetitive task and certainly a good workout. Once the hole was filled, we smoothed the surface a little bit and I also wrote the date into it. The next day it was pretty much dry and hard, but it cured for 2 full days. The design I came up with was based on what I thought was practical for us and our patio. And this is how it should look like. I got all the measurements from that drawing and also the cut list for every individual piece because none of the stair pieces is the same. And we also got the size and shape for the foundation from that. With all the preparation done, I bought the wood from a local company which offers pre-cut and molded patio planks and the right construction lumber. Everything is large wood and costs about 160 euros. First of all, I cut the lumber to rough length. You maybe wonder about this table saw. Well, it's a story on its own. If you want to know more about it, click here. Next I marked all the 45-degree angles and the sides that I need to rip because the planks were a little bit too wide. For ripping, I changed to a proper ripping blade. The ripping itself then was pretty straightforward and, well, not very that exciting. The clean table saw cut left a sharp edge, so I routed part of a roundover to smooth it out and match the molding again. That's all I could do inside the shop. The preparation for the stair construction pieces I had to do outside. The slabs I got are 4 cm thick and about 25 cm wide. Because the shape of these pieces was quite complicated, I made some one-to-one templates with the Big Print program from Matthias Wandel. I cut one side right to the line so I could align it with one of the pre-cut edges. I stapled the template in place and put some clear tape over all the cut lines. For the actual cutting I borrowed a track saw from a friend. I also had to plunge cut several times. And here is a good example how not to do it. I'm still not quite sure what mistake I made. I think I plunged too fast, but I didn't get hurt, only the track got a nasty scratch. You can imagine that this scared the shit out of me. After that first plunge experience, I really held the saw tight to prevent it from happening again. The other plunge cuts then worked okay. For the most part I used the track saw and finished the inside corners with the jigsaw. Some fine tuning by hand as well. Then I removed the template and transferred the shape on 2 more pieces that have the same shape and cut everything out. For the diagonal support piece I made another template. And here some of the edges need to be cut at a 45-degree bevel, so I marked where to cut it and cut it. Not really the best method to cut this angle with the track saw backwards, but this was the only way to do it with precision. For the other side I used a regular circular saw with the saw track as a guide. I had to finish these cuts by hand with a chisel. But for the larger bevels I used a table saw. Much easier and safer too. Now for some reason I lost nearly all the footage from attaching the construction to the patio and screwing on the individual stairs. So now I can only show you the final result and show how we did it. There are two metal strips that hold two of the construction pieces to the patio support beam. The third one is screwed directly into it. The pieces at the diagonal are screwed together with 4 big screws, 2 from both sides. And in the foundation we have 2 threaded rods per piece anchored in the foundation. They are height adjustable, so we could align the whole structure. For a precise, easy and repeatable layout of the screws, I made these 2 jigs. They just align with the edge and then I can clamp them down and drill the holes. The jig was made so that the holes and also the screw heads are always in one of the valleys of the profile. This jig works well for the straight ends from both sides, but for the diagonal sides I wanted the screws to be at an angle, so to give them a little bit more grip in the structure. But therefore I had to make another jig. It works with the same principle. You line it up with the edge and clamp it down. But here the guide tubings are made at an angle and the rest works just the same as before. And the holes come out about a hair from the edge. That's just right. Both jigs have 3 holes for both sides, and that's because we sometimes had to use different hole locations, because in the end I rounded over the edges and then the screw on the diagonal would be too close to the edge, so we had to use another hole that was well right in the middle, and then it worked just fine. Both jigs took me about 1 hour to make, but when I look at the final results, it was really worth it. Once all the stair pieces were attached, I marked the final length on all of them. Then we removed them again and I took them into the shop to cut them to their final length. Then we put them back on, this time with all the screws. I cleaned some of the chip out with the chisel. And the same goes for the other side. For the final touch-up I wanted to round over the corners, so I looked through the house for something round that had the right diameter. I stick with a plate that had just the right size. Then I simply traced around it and cut the corners off with the jigsaw. I used a down cutting blade to prevent any chip out on the top and then smoothed the new edge by hand with a file. And now the stair is finished. Let's try it out. Yep, it works. The stair is actually already half a year old and also stand through the first winter, which is where I live quite a lot of snow. An average of about 1 meter this winter, and the stair survived that with no problem. The large wood is very durable. It only turned a little bit grey, but any unprotected wood does that outdoors. With the gravel over the foundation it looks a little bit like the stairs floating over the ground, because you can't see the threaded rods anymore. All in all, this was quite a challenging and fun project. Hopefully it will last for many years.